Joining us now is Congressman Adam Schiff, who served as a member of the January 6th committee. Congressman Schiff, thank you so much for joining me tonight. There's really no one I'd rather talk to about this development at this moment. And I wonder how you're sort of looking at this in the broader lens of history, just the precedent that is being set, the fact that a vice president has gone into the Department of Justice to testify for the Department of Justice about the actions of the president he formerly served to potentially undermine democracy.
Well, it's a historic moment, certainly unprecedented. I'm glad it's taking place. We were deeply frustrated in the January 6th committee that he wouldn't come and testify before our committee, and that we didn't have the luxury of time to compel him to do that. But he needed to tell that story, and he needed to tell it under oath. It's one thing, as you point out, to go on a book tour and to carefully couch your words. The special counsel is not going to allow him to couch anything. He's going to have to be fully forthcoming. I think it signals that this is coming near the end of the special counsel's investigation. But more than anything else, to me, it's an affirmation of the rule of law still works in this country, that a vice president can't hide behind false claims of privilege or, the political expedience of not wanting to testify against someone popular in his party. That's not a good enough reason not to do your duty, and that the courts would uphold his subpoena and compel him to speak. So unprecedented, certainly very important to the investigation, but also, I think, validates the rule of law.
Yeah, gold star day for the rule of law. Because of your deep familiarity with the events of January 6th, I'm interested in knowing what you would ask the vice president. What do we not know that we need to know about the run-up to January 6th and the day of itself?
Well, I can say, as a former member of the January 6th committee, but also as a former prosecutor, that what the Justice Department is going to be most interested in is what was the president's state of mind? What was his intent? If you look at some of the powerful testimony we elicited of when Donald Trump is on the phone with top Justice Department officials, people he appointed, he goes through all of these claims of fraud in the election, and the Justice Department people shoot them down one after another, say, there's no there. We looked into that. That wasn't true. And what does the president say? He says, just say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. That's powerful evidence of intent. The prosecutors, the special counsel, they're going to be interested in what other powerful evidence of the president's malign intent, his culpability, is in Mike Pence's testimony. That is, did he acknowledge to Mike Pence, as he acknowledged to his own top Justice Department officials, that he knew these claims of fraud were false, that he knew Mike Pence didn't have the authority to do what he wanted. If, for example, the reports are that he told Pence, if the reports are accurate, that he told Pence, you're too honest to do what I want you to do, that's an admission that he knows it would require deception and lying. So I think it's intent that the prosecutors are really going to want to get at and should.
Yeah, a firsthand account of the president's intent seems to be very valuable in this. I do wonder, because Mike Pence tried to fight off this subpoena by invoking the speech and debate clause, and some questions are going to be off the table for prosecutors because a judge has effectively granted limited privilege, if you will, on account of that speech and debate clause. How do you see that hampering a potential line of questioning? And do you think there are key moments in and around January 6th that the DOJ can't ask about?
I think it's going to have very limited bearing on what the Justice Department really needs to know, because most of the damage was done before, in terms of his conversations with the president, before he presided over that session, before that speech and debate clause even arguably would apply. So those prior conversations with the president in December, others in January, even the morning of, before Mike Pence walks into that chamber, I don't think there's any privilege that applies. So I don't think they're going to be very limited in what they can ask. And I think the vice president was going to be required to answer those questions, and I assume that he did. So I don't think it's going to adversely impact the prosecution at all.
You're a lawyer. You know how this all works. When you look at the tea leaves, I mean, we know that Mike Pence says he didn't want to testify, but he's put so much out there. His top aides have testified in front of the grand jury. Do you think he's ready to tell all behind closed doors? And is there a chance any of this is going to come out for public consumption at some point?
Well, he resisted telling what he knew. He resisted with our committee. He resisted until he was compelled to by the court. Mike Pence is thinking about Mike Pence. He's thinking about his presidential campaign. He doesn't want to have to do, one thing that he's not required to do that might alienate any of the Trump voters. So I'm sure the special counsel is going to have had to pry everything out of him that they needed. So I don't think that this was Mike Pence deciding, okay, here's the time to do a full accounting. I think this was the moment when Mike Pence was told, you're going to have to set your presidential campaign aside. You're going to have to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
The idea that Mike Pence is still trying to court Trump supporters, I'm not going to comment on that logic, but anyway, we will wait to see what comes out of all of this. Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you so much.
Go
ahead.
It's potato logic.
It's potato.
I was just harkening back to it's potato logic.
I see what you did right there. Thank you so much, Congressman, for making the time tonight.